Yeah, we had a little bit of I usually identified the date, so it is a Tuesday, June 17th, my brother Pat's birthday. Um, and 2025. We had some kids kind of bombed us. What was that, 2 weeks ago? So I'm sort of keeping an eye out these days just to make sure nobody with unwholesome intentions enters. It's interesting because they have to go through registering and all of that. Anyway, we seem to be okay. Um, so let's.
I think they may hack an email of somebody.
Uh, you're
Yeah,
probably right, Monica. Thank you.
that's my theory.
I think it makes sense. Sure. Yep. All right. So, just settling back into your sitting posture or lying posture or standing posture. And you can close your eyes or just lower your gaze and just turning the attention first to the body. And really that can be first and last, actually. But starting by feeling just the general state of your body energetically. You might just notice if you're feeling bright and alert or sluggish. And it can be really interesting just to feel the flows of energy in the body. When we are alert, when we're wide awake, there can be a lot of subtle feelings, sensations in the body. When we first attune to that, it can almost be a little disturbing to feel all that's going on. Then, if we let the breath be an anchoring focus, then it can be more like feeling a flow or life force moving through us. And the breath, with its rhythmic movement, repeating over and over, gives us something somewhat stable to rely on amidst the really disparate sensations that might be happening. Sensations in the head, in the face, the skin, the arms, legs, the torso. The idea that the body isn't a solid thing starts to make more sense, to become more evident when we pay attention to it in this way. The breath can also function as a calming tool or device. The in-breath opens as the uplifting, the out breath releases and calms. It can be helpful to lengthen the breath a bit. Uh, this doesn't have to mean deeper breaths as much as it means just letting the breath be a little slower as you inhale, a little longer as you exhale. And checking the quality of effort. Is there a striving or grasping, an effort at control? Or is there just a letting go, allowing? As we sit with the body and follow the breath, there's no place we arrive, no end point. So one of the challenges is to stay with the flow of experience. Sometimes we'll have a sense of settling and calm or a pleasant feeling and think that we've arrived. A little while later, that might have dissipated. And how do we react to that loss? Does judgment slip in or frustration? Or can we just continue to track the felt experience, the body, the feelings, the mental formations, So typically we call this attitude one of patience. Just a patient acceptance of what's arising, of what's passing. We can also call it love or loving kindness, a gentle receptivity, openness, non-resistance. Hmm. So I am, of course, a student of the Dharma, as they say. I am very interested in the early Buddhist teachings, particularly, and and one of my goals is to try to, I don't know if a goal makes sense, but I do try to, apply mindfulness to my life in regular ways, loving kindness, wisdom, and yet I'm not someone who can spend, hours reading the texts, or I don't like sit down at night and watch Dharma talks on YouTube or something, Um, uh, that for me, Dharma teachings are, first of all, like require my mind to be uh, really in good shape. There's only a couple hours a day when I can really absorb, uh, serious Dharma. The rest of the time, it just becomes like numbing in a way. And, you know, and, and yeah, if you've read a lot of Buddhist books, especially like popular ones, they all start to sound like the same blah, 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 mindfulness, loving kindness, generosity, blah, and it sort of, it kind of loses its impact. It's like eating too much chocolate, you just don't taste it anymore. Um, so, nonetheless, and when I'm teaching a lot, uh, it allows me to be immersed in the Dharma in a very natural way that's really rich. And it's really one of the, secrets of being a Dharma teacher is that you get extra Dharma teachings and get to be immersed in that. But as I mentioned, like I'm not teaching that much this month, which is good. I mean, I had a really busy month last month, and it's good to have some space. But I also kind of see how like I can kind of get drifty, and so um, yesterday I just looked. I wanted to hear Ajahn Pasanno's voice. So if you don't know Ajahn Pasanno, he's the former abbot, co-abbot of the Abhayagiri Monastery in Northern California, and was a student of Ajahn Chah, and was actually the abbot for many years of the monastery in Thailand that Ajahn Chah set up for foreign monks. Anyway, I don't know, a lot of you know who he is, and some of you have met him, and he's kind of become my, I don't know, I don't like to call somebody my teacher because it's like this idea of possession, but he's kind of the person that I go to for uh, wisdom and consolation. And Ajahn Pasanno he's like the embodiment of the simple monk. He doesn't make things complicated or highfalutin. In any case, I just was like, oh, is there a podcast I can listen to Ajahn Pasanno today? And so I just, went on my phone and, did literally just Googled that, and stumbled on something I'd never heard before. But it was like, it was, I'm kind of trying to find it now. So it was, I think it's called Buddhist Insights. And it seemed to be sort of for monastics. It was being live streamed on YouTube and recorded, and on I think on Zoom at the same time because people were able to talk. Yeah, so it was both on YouTube and Zoom at the same time, and people were asking questions of Ajahn Pasannon, which is actually the best way to encounter Ajahn Pasannon. Um, and it was it struck me immediately as kind of funny and typical that I think this was some younger monastics, and the first question was about how much samadhi do you to have stream entries. So stream entry is the first stage of enlightenment in classical Buddhist teachings. And it basically is like, how concentrated do I have to be to get enlightened? And Ajahn Pasan was like, and I know him well enough that as soon as I heard the question, I was like, okay, he's not going to do much with this. He was like, well, and he has this very gentle, easygoing kind of way of responding to things. Well, you only need enough, um, samadhi to have a right view. And then he just sort of goes off and doesn't really talk about samadhi and because what people want to know, what it's the question is sort of like jhanas, if you're familiar with that, the absorption states, these deep states, and and so then the next question is like, so can you talk about the three fetters that we abandon when we attain the first stage, the stream entry, the first stage, and so all these questions are about, and he's just kind of like deflecting and deflecting, and just going, you know, just right view and the precepts. And so, I mean, he's a man after my own heart, as they say. Uh, because, first of all, he hears that the grasping in these questions, right? It's you know, I want, it's, they're multi-layered. This grasping is quite layered. For one thing, yes, they want this thing that they think is going to solve things, enlightenment. And it's going to be an answer, and that's what they're supposed to do. And the texts say, and then my rebirth will be this, and they're all out there in like this, trying to grasp at something, right? But in within that is this, for one thing, this wish for something magical, which addicts are very familiar with. A magical fix that's going to transform your mind state, that's going to change your life. Everything's going to be great. I'm going to win the lottery. So there's this desire for this magic, this exalted, blissful state. And there's this desire to arrive at this place. This is like, right, one of the great solutions, right? That there's this place to arrive, and then you're there, and then you're done, which denies impermanence, right? And I feel like in that, these questions to me are like, spiritual versions of addiction. You know, they're like the same kind of thinking that addicts have. That and of course, this is a very wholesome thing that these people are working toward, but it's also like you're going you're going in the right direction. You've just got a bad angle at it. You just don't have quite the right angle. It's not like an addict who's just going in the wrong direction, and there's no, you're not going to get, we're just headed in the wrong direction, and we're not going to arrive at the destination we want. You're going in the right direction, just a little off, couple of degrees off, and you can be drawn back, and you'll probably figure it out, hopefully, because otherwise you're going to wind up in this cul-de-sac, spiritual cul-de-sac, that's just spinning, trying to attain, trying to get, trying to hold on to. Um, but so what I love about Ajahn Pasannon, and it's funny because, here's a guy, he's been a monk for 50 years, you know. His life is nothing like my life. It has been nothing like my life, like, forget it. He does not play golf, He doesn't put on the Beach Boys for the 3 days when Brian Wilson dies, It, he's just, um, but somehow I feel this affinity for him, and when I hang out with him, I feel like he maybe feels that with me. I like to think, I like to think he likes me too. Uh, which is, of course, not particularly important, but there's that ego thing lingers around. So I want to come back then to, well, what is it that he's pointing at that we are pointing at, which is the I mean, there's a few things about it, and there's a few things I could say. I guess the first thing that comes to mind is the long enduring mind, the sense of when, I just got to 40 years sober, right? And people think, oh, that's a really big deal. Whatever. It is, of course. But, we all know how I got here, right? I got here not by trying to attain perfect 12-step and spiritual awakening. I got here by not drinking one day at a time. Just the simplest of non-activities. I just don't drink, right? And that was like a foundation, and that carries me. It's not the whole at all. It's not recovery even. It's just sobriety, but it's this foundation, and then the things that are built on that, right? And the idea that I don't have to attain something. It's again a beautiful, you know, I, idea that we have in the recovery world, that you don't graduate, you know, that there isn't some end point, that it's just one day at a time, you know. And that's what Ajahn Pasannon was talking about, one day at a time, one breath at a time, and we just keep showing up. And he was talking about this, about how, you find yourself off there, oops, off track, and you bring yourself back. And then maybe you have like a deep, you know, epiphany, something, oh, wow, this is really special, and then you lose it. And then you scream at your neighbor, and then you're like, oh, then you make amends. And, we just kind of, we just keep going. It's very simple. I mean, I'm sorry, but there's always a golf analogy. So there's something, when you get a birdie in golf, which for those who don't know what that is, there's par. A birdie is one less than par, which means it's very good because you played even better than you're supposed to. There's something called I don't know if there's a technical term for it, but it's basically the blow up after the birdie. So you get a birdie and you're so excited that you go up to hit your next drive and it flies into the woods. You're like, oh. And it's the same thing as when you get a double bogey. And it's like, well, you walk off, and what happens to you? What's your next shot? You don't get too high and you don't get too low. I mean, yesterday I got a birdie and I got a par after that. So that was like, I was like, yeah, see, equanimity, golf equanimity. But this is our path of recovery, not too high, not too low, because we know where those things lead. I mean, it's one thing when it's not too high, you're in a jhana and you're like, oh man, and whatever, you go astray. But when you're too high because you got the promotion, or you're something really exciting, let's go out and celebrate and drink champagne, and all of a sudden, like, oh, I blew it, or you're so low that it doesn't even have to be drinking, right? It can be, you uh, I don't even want to talk about the really bad things, but you just do something stupid. You do something unwise, unwholesome. And this idea of just, this is great. Something good happened. Oh, this is rough. Something bad happened. What do I do now? I do the same thing I've been doing every day. I don't drink or use no matter what. I try not to break the precepts. I try not to hate myself. I try not to hate other people. And I try to be awake and aware for my life and learn from every moment. What do I learn from that? Is there something to be learned? That to me is also, a critical principle. We could call it the investigation aspect of the factors of awakening. Always asking ourselves, well, what just happened? What were the causes behind that? And what could I have done differently? Or what did I do right that I could repeat? And this is our path, right? I mean, maybe that's the most complicated part of it, the investigation part. The rest of it's very simple, right? And I mean, I think the simplicity of it is what makes it so hard, frankly. You know, addicts, we don't want boring. Like boring is the worst thing. That was what I feared before I got sober. What I feared most of all was boredom. I imagined that my life was going to be one tedious gray day of nothing after another. And of course, it's been just the opposite of that. But it's the reason it's not boring isn't because it's exciting. It's not boring because I relate to it differently, because I'm not looking for glitz and glam, you know. I find it interesting to I spent, as you know, I talk about like Tuesday is the science section of the New York Times. Well, I when I was in school, when I was a teenager, particularly on my, the beginning of my degeneracy, science was like the last. I didn't science, forget it. I was not interested in science. I find science really fascinating now, and things that I would have ignored when I was high, that wouldn't have that they weren't exciting enough, frankly. And that's what the beauty of mindfulness, right? Mindfulness opens up the world in this way that the simplest thing becomes fascinating. And many of you have been on retreats where, you just eating and you're like, whoa, brown rice is really fascinating. It's quite complex in its flavor, and you realize, I think it's Fritz Perls who says the boredom is the lack of attention, that when we're really paying attention to life, there's a lot going on. It's really interesting. I mean, we learn to just sit with our body and feel our breath. I mean, what could be more uninteresting and boring than that? And yet we discover, oh, wait, wow, the body itself is this fascinating, being in a body is a fascinating experience when you pay attention to it. And so this is part of this process that I think recovery is about, and that Ajahn Pasannon is talking about. Like, you don't have to be getting into jhanas. Just pay attention right now to this, and you'll discover that all the richness of it right here. And that in fact, when you are sort of needing and feeling requiring things to be more exciting, that's when you wind up in the unwholesome situations, and when you wind up in these states of grasping and disappointment. um, yeah, so this is where, I mean, organically, obviously, for me, this merging of dharma and recovery, that that when we stop using intoxicants, we become more subtly aware naturally. Intoxicants blur our awareness. And so if we if we understand that, and this is why I teach mindfulness to people in recovery. If we understand that, then we can use that clarity of mind then to expand our appreciation of life and to deepen our connection with life that mindfulness does for us. So it's there. It's like it's implicit in recovery, but if we don't if nobody points it out to us or guides us how to connect with it, we might miss it. But having this tool that of mindfulness that's joined with this clarity then allows for this experience of life as more rich and fulfilling without uh, the the necessity for uh, you know high states of stimulation or even deep states of meditation. Um, so again, I encourage you to look for Ajahn Pasannon. I'll put his name in the chat. Um, and again, he's like he's he's very subtle. Ajahn Amaro, who was his co-teacher, a co-abbot at Abhayagiri, is like a great storyteller and full of sutta references and 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 sometimes very deep dharma, but entertaining. Ajahn Pasanno can be boring. God bless him, But when you're ready for that, he's like, oh, hey, it fits with this topic, right? Boring. He kind of requires of you that you lean in a little closer, right? It's like the person who doesn't talk too loud. Like, what are they saying? Like, and listen and kind of just take it. Oh, yeah, right. Oh, there's this resonance, this subtle resonance from him that I really love, and I will also add that um, I think that he is a what's called a field of merit or a field of and really a field of metta. Um, Being around him, he's one of those people who has an energy that when you're with him, you feel happy, which is like that's a pretty rare quality. He has a book on loving kindness, which is just it's really a transcription of a retreat he taught on loving kindness. It's called Abundant, Exalted, Immeasurable, and you can download it for free. Uh, that's and then of course I've drawn from his book. Oh gosh, it's got nurturing and seeds or something in it. Jeez, it's that one I was reading last year, but the last year is gone. So anyway, we'll think of it in a minute. It's over on my desk, my altar. Well, I've talked enough, at least to get other uh, comments, questions, thoughts from folks. So thank you for your kind attention and any anything anybody wants to join in. Hey, Steve, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, this was wonderful today. Just it's something that is really, really important. And I know I mentioned this before, but run across a couple of articles lately about the dangers of mindfulness when people go at it without any kind of without any support or teachers. And I mean, mindfulness has become this buzzword now. It's being so commercialized, and it's just really off the charts. And I'd like you to speak a little bit about the work that you do. And to be honest with you, it's just so dang vitally important. I can remember trying to meditate 35, 40, 50 years ago and really in and out, in and out, in and out. And until I kind of got your books and started reading the books and then utilized you as as one of my Dharma teachers. And then last week you made this mention, and even again today, how you really you don't get there. It's something that we work on, and the simplest things, being an addict, is the simplest things. It's just this in that moment, that mindfulness moment, when I go to grab a bag of peanuts or something, and I know I shouldn't be eating those things. It's right there. It's just that little moment where I can just be mindful of what in the heck I'm doing. So, but it's just absolutely vital, and I support everything that you're doing, because I don't believe that without the teachers and without the retreats and without the sanghas and the groups that were in here, myself personally, I can't achieve what I was looking for when I first came to meditation and mindfulness in the beginning. So
Sure. Yeah.
I just want to make that comment.
Yeah. Thanks, Stephen. Well, I think that's just a thought. I don't know, but I think that the mindfulness movement has peaked and is on the downward. And I use the New York Times science section as my example of this. That it used to be every week there was a story in there about mindfulness in one way or another.
Right.
And they're very repetitive. There's always something about diet and health, and but I think that the people, I think you're talking about this, people come to mindfulness and they think they're going to get something,
Mm-hmm.
and they take like a 6 week course, and then they expect some thing, okay, now what, and it's like going to rehab for 4 weeks and thinking, okay, now I'm cured. It's like, no, if you want the benefits of this, it's something you stick with for a long, long time. It's again why, plant medicine seems a lot more, oh, great, I had my big breakthrough, I had a spiritual experience in Peru, and now I'm really, and, which I believe is a false awakening, really. But in any case, I think people get disappointed with mindfulness. And and particularly when you're taking mindfulness out of the system of the Dharma, of the Eightfold Path, of the Brahma Viharas, of the precepts, and the three characteristics. And if you don't know what any of those things are, just look them up. There, you take it out of that context, and it's kind of like it's weak. It's weak. It's weakened by you're removing the supports and the whole power structure. I don't know what that means. So yeah, mindfulness isn't enough any more than not drinking isn't enough for recovery. And you have to invest in a system. It's why traditional indigenous cultures might use plant medicine in the context of a system, and then you take the drug out of the system and think that's the whole system, and you're missing the point. This isn't how spirituality works.
And that's the thing, is that what you just said is the point I was trying to make, how important it is for all of us to always have teachers and people, like-minded people, to learn these things and get that experience. It's so very important to have the work that you're doing, and there's many of them out there, so I appreciate that.
And I will say that one of the places where I've learned the most is being is listening to teachers respond to other people's questions. I've never been somebody who raised their hand. I occasionally, but I usually regretted it after I asked a question because I usually felt shamed or embarrassed whatever. But listening to teachers address other people's questions, and this is why I like group interviews on retreats, that's where I've learned the most, because I hear all the different minds and mind states that people ask questions about. And then I hear teachers respond to them. And after a while, I understand, oh, right, they're saying the same thing over, the teachers are saying the same thing over and over again. I mean, it used to annoy me going into interviews with Joseph Goldstein and having him say, well, just can you pay attention to that? Can you just be mindful of that? And I'd be like, there's got to be more than that. Come on. Um, so yeah. Um, Aaron, hello. Try to calm down here.
I hope I'm not going to regret this question.
You're going to be humiliated publicly.
No doubt. So I'd like to go back to what you were saying about Ajahn, if I'm saying that right, how he became, I don't know if you'd say mentor, but just someone you looked up to.
Yeah.
Um, I had this recent, just a couple of days ago, experience of after 15 months of sobriety,
Hmm.
I ended up firing my sponsor. She called me aside after a meeting. We went downstairs and she said, "What are you on?" I was like, "What?" She wanted to know what I was on.
Uh-huh.
And and I said, "You know I have tardive dyskinesia, right? That's where my tongue gets all messed up. That was from a psych med I took years ago." But anyway, she said that along with um, this meditation thing, it's never going to work for you. It's just one of 12 steps. But for me, it's just what you were saying. This sort of boredom kicked in. If I heard these same phrases again, like it was over and over, the next right thing. Well, what the hell is the right thing? I don't know that.
That's right.
Just those kinds of things, those kinds of sayings, I was gonna slit my throat. So anyway, I discovered somebody in my in a meeting was reading your book,
Mm.
and she was working on it with her sponsor. So being ever curious and extroverted, I said, "What are you doing?" And she told me. So my therapist, I told you this, had already said do Jeff Warren, the Taoists, meditations for 30 days. And I did. And I loved it. But then I saw there was a you and started listening to, showing up here Fridays, and stuff got brighter. I mean, the meditations were more intense. I don't know what the right word is. Just the ability to focus and
Mm.
concentrate just exponentially expanded to the point where there was this just a couple days ago, we were doing some social meditation, and I actually, no, you won't laugh at me. I actually became the trees and
Mm.
the birds and the jets. I I was part of them. This interconnectedness just grabbed me, and it lasted all day. And anyway, I would like to find, I don't know how you go about this, but I don't know if there's somebody out there that's more like me. Yeah, AA worked for a while, but well, I guess you're all here, right?
There's that.
So maybe I could find more people that are like me. Like I don't know what else to do to build this sense of community that that's it.
Yeah, well, you're showing up here, and we don't really talk very much about the fact that we have, although I know that Monica always puts it in the chat, that we have that sign up uh, like a Google Doc where people put their names and contact information, and if sort of like I'm
Oh,
looking for somebody to maybe talk to or be a sponsor, or I'm willing to be a sponsor there. So that if you look in your chat, you'll see that that's there, and you can go to that Google Docs page and at least maybe connect with some people. I know that there are people here who do have relationships with each other because of that group or that document. Aaron, you're showing up here. You're doing great. You're not drinking. You're working your way through this. It's a comp. I mean, the sponsor thing is it's a very tricky thing because these are unauthorized, untrained people, some of whom are skilled and some of whom are less so, and enough times they bring in their own prejudices and beliefs that might not be in harmony with yours. And so, uh, God bless them all, and try to find somebody who, fits with you. And I have to say, like, in certain places where I'm teaching, I'm finding there's less and less real interest in the 12 steps. I just think that that this sort of Buddhist recovery movement as such is turning into something somewhat separate, that self-existing, and I'm not pushing that at all because I like the 12 steps as a model. Um, you know, uh, uh, I find them really useful as a model for a process, but the world of the 12 steps, and the people, particularly people are always the problem in the world, aren't they? That can become problematic. So, and how you interpret particularly the God elements of the steps can be very alienating to people who are, uh, not aligned with that viewpoint. Um, so on we shall go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Tenzin, and I know it's after 11, so I know some people are dropping off, but I'm here. I don't have any golf planned for today. I have to work on my book. So other than that, you're not keeping me, well, the laundry and the garbage, but other than that. Tenzin, go ahead. Hi,
Mm.
nice to see you.
Hi, Kevin, and hi, everyone. Three brief things in relation to what you shared. I was so moved by how you articulated today, you know, um, some of the connections that are there all the time if we are practicing the 12 steps and Buddhism. So I was very moved. I could listen to, that part again. And then also, to be, I feel gratitude for being an addict in recovery.
Yeah,
And it gives me, we could say whatever is a normal person. I don't really know what that is,
right.
but, having an addiction that I'm in recovery for, it gives me something every second of every day to stay connected with, both of these practices.
Yeah.
Um, so that's number two. And number three is and number three is just about let's say the wisdom of the 12 steps in the big book. I'll
Mm.
share that. So my home meetings are there are 300 to 400 people every morning. It's very
Wow.
peaceful. And what we do is we read a paragraph a day through the first 164 pages.
Mm.
And then it's very, and then people share. It's over the course of an hour. And there is so much wisdom, in not only in the big book, but in so much wisdom in the big book and in what gets shared from so many different aspects. So that's all I have, and I'm just grateful to be here with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Lovely. So, thank you everybody for showing up. According to my calendar, I will be in Berkeley for 2 more Tuesdays. Then I'll be in Stockholm but I anticipate doing Tuesdays that it'll be evening. And since the sun won't be going down there much, that shouldn't be a problem for me to be wide awake. It's whatever it is, probably 7 o'clock at night, I think. Anyway, I don't know why I'm even bringing all that up. I will say, yeah, that I'll be back next week, and that's pretty much the only place you're going to find me, unless you're wandering around North Berkeley or one of my golf courses. Um, yeah, I'm just noticing some nice chats in there. Vicky, thank you for passing that on. I was just a friend's granddaughter is going to Cornell starting in this fall. So I was talking about having been there and what a great city Ithaca is. Yeah. All right, folks. I don't. I was going to say Happy Tuesday, but I don't really like that expression anyway. But I did it, so there you go. I hope you have a lovely day, and I'm around if people need want to contact me. I'm around these couple weeks and with a little bit more free time. So,
Great. Thank you, Kevin. We love you.
okay, Steve, thanks. Thanks everybody for sharing and have a great day.
Thanks, Kevin.
Okay,
Yeah,
peace.
thanks.
No
Catch you later.
kings.
Hi, Monica. Hope you had a good trip.
Oh, we'll have to talk. Yeah.
I know. Yay.
Yeah, boy, what a trip. God.
Bye. Can't wait
Thank
to
Bye-bye.
get there.
you,
Take care, guys.
Kevin, Monica, and somebody texted me. They're great. Oh, Vicky.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
yeah, Vicky is a great, yeah, support. All right, 3, 2, 1, we're
Ciao.
out.
Ciao.
Bye.